So one thing that I really miss about gaming is that we don't have video game manuals anymore, because in the past 10 plus years they have disappeared. You can go pick up a new game today and it will more than likely not have anything in there besides maybe like a little piece of paper or something. If it's like Square Enix, it's gonna have like that little warranty paper, but for the most part you don't get nothing, and that sucks because like we used to get those all the time, especially in the early 2000s, you know, like even in the 90s, especially like when video games, you know, were at its high, we would always get these video game manuals. But as we entered the 2010s, they slowly but surely disappeared and they stopped doing it. And I mean, it makes sense because one, it cuts costs, because majority of people didn't really care about video game manuals at all. And like, it was most of the time you would get a new game, and what are you going to do? You're going to put that game in the system and you're going to play the game, and maybe if you're struggling at one point because you don't know a certain control, you'll go back to that video game manual and you'll read it. Or if it's a certain series, like you could say Resident Evil, that because Resident Evil and other series, just they used to go like in detail about like some of the characters from the video game. So maybe after you play the game, you would go back to the manual, you can read about these characters and other things and settings about the game. So you had that, but as the years went on, they slowly but surely disappeared, especially as the generations moved along and we entered the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Switch generation. For the most part, they disappeared when it came to those systems. Besides a few series, there were a few series that still did put out manuals, but for the most part, almost everything, they did not give us manuals. We usually got a whole bunch of this useless stuff inside of them, especially like the Xbox, because you know, early Xbox One, they gave you all those goddamn, oh, free trials for Xbox Live. It's like 2 days go, 3 days go. So they gave us all those useless shit, even though I guess technically it wasn't useless, because if you had a lot of those, you could just like have gold for the whole month for free if you had a lot of those, like those little codes. But I digress. For the most part, we were getting useless junk in there unless you bought like a collector edition or a steelbook or something. It will come with some little extra thing in there. But we did not get video game manuals at all, which really sucks. One of the things I want to do in this video is just like look back at like all the different strategy guides and go through certain systems and just showing like how fast like the strategy guides became like less and less. Because the funny thing is, even in certain generations, like in the same generation, you would have strategy guides were starting to get smaller and smaller, and that's like kind of the crazy thing. So I just want to go over certain games and certain series just to show y'all like exactly like how fast the strategy guide kind of disappeared, especially on certain systems and in some series too, because there's certain series where it went from like having a big strategy guide to just having a super thin paper to having nothing though. So the first transition I want to show you is the DS to the 3DS when it comes to the manuals. And the crazy thing is, even in the DS era, there were manuals were starting to get smaller too. But the series I want to start with is Pokemon. Of course, I mean, this is some of the only DS games I have because I love Pokemon way too goddamn much. But yes, let's look at Pokemon Platinum. Now in Pokemon Platinum, you did get a lot of stuff because like in the DS era, they gave you so much random stuff, because look at all this. I got all this random stuff right here. But when it comes to the manual right here, the manual actually did have a lot of good things in here, because I remember even looking at this back in the day. One of the things I used to love is it would tell you like after like, you know how you beat the gym leaders, it would tell you like what level exactly you can have for like trading Pokemon, because like as I beat Platinum so many goddamn times, I eventually started trading stuff from like either my Diamond or my Pearl. So that was one thing I really loved about this, because the books were actually pretty thick. But the crazy thing is, as you moved on to the next generation, as you moved on to 5th gen, they were kind of the same size, but they were getting a little bit smaller if you compare it to those. But at the same time, you were missing some of the stuff, because like you do in 5th gen, you did not have the thing about the gym leaders at all. They got rid of that. But the crazy thing is, as you get to the end of the DS, you see things like Pokemon Black and White 2, where this is where you see the real thinness, because these actually became very, very thin. Because here, I'll show you real quick, because if you look at this, if you can see that this one is way thicker than this one. This one is kind of light. So that's one of the transitions that did happen with the DS, is that the manuals started to get smaller, and they got smaller compared to like how they were with Black and White and even stuff in 4th gen. So that was one of the like things that Nintendo was like, or in Game Freak, they're like, you know what, we don't need these goddamn manuals anymore. So you started to see them get smaller. But then as we got to the 3DS, just know that's when stuff really changed, because when it comes to the 3DS, they basically gave us this flimsy ass paper. This is literally all we got for the strategy guide for Pokemon X and Y. Like, look at this. What is this? What is this? This is all we got, I should say, from the manual, not the strategy guide. That's a totally different video, but manual, I should say. But like, we barely got anything at all, which is like crazy. But then the funny thing is, as we move on to the next game, which is Oris, Apple Sapphire, and Omega Ruby, you got essentially nothing besides like this random 3DS thing. So they gave you nothing, so like it started to become empty. As we got to the last games of Pokemon on the 3DS, Omega Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, you know that you basically got the same thing you got with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which is essentially just this, and you didn't get a strategy guide at all, which sucks. So like even in this short time I can show you with the DS, you saw how fast the strategy guides just got smaller like that. For the most part, when it came to 4th gen and then the Gen 2 remakes and then 5th gen, the strategy guides were the same. But as soon as you got to the sequels, the Black and White 2, that's when the strategy guides started to get smaller. And as soon as we got the X and Y, that's when there was just a flimsy ass paper. And then as soon as we got to Aorus, that's when Game Freak and Nintendo just got rid of the strategy guides as a whole, because they're like, yeah, you know what, we don't need this shit at all anymore. On the line of Nintendo, we can like do Nintendo too, because we can go GameCube, Wii, and then Switch and show you. I know I should have Wii U, but I never bought a Wii U because I did not get the Wii U. But I digress though. Let's show like the transition between GameCube, Wii, and then Switch. A lot of y'all should know how the Switch is, but like if you go with GameCube, you know we did get the regular like thick manuals that you would have in this era, because like if you look at this one for Resident Evil 0, you know this was like a decently sized manual. But then as we got to the Switch, also shout out to Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. I can't wait for the new Budokai Tenkaichi 4. I can't wait for that. It's gonna be a banger. We still got strategy guys. I will say they're about the same size as the GameCube ones, but maybe just a little bit thinner, but like it's not really that big of a jump. I'm not really sure how the Wii U one was because I never bought a Wii U. But as we moved on to the Switch, essentially you didn't get shit. Pokemon Legends Arceus, there ain't nothing inside. We did not get a manual at all. And then unless like we did get pre-order bonuses if you pre-order somewhere, but you don't really get shit at all. And then even if you do get something, it's usually like a little code, because that's what you have in like this Revelations. I got a code to get Revelations too, so like you didn't get shit. Or if you bought certain games, you would get something extra, like Somnalis right here. You get an extra thing in here, which is like a car, which is like a photo that's reference to the game if you played the game. And then also you got like a little warranty thing, so it's not really nothing special at all. But like if you get something like Doki Doki Literature Club, you do get extra stuff in here just because they put extra stuff in here. But for the most part, you don't get nothing in the Switch, which really sucks, because especially because the Switch has this little ass thing right here where like they could put a little ass manual, which would be really cool, because like the size of like the case, because like the Switch's size is actually really cool when it comes to games. But you know, they could have just put something right there. But besides the point, Nintendo was just like, you know what, we don't need manuals at all. So you don't get no manuals at all when it comes to the Switch. So like that just shows how fast they got rid of it. I'm pretty sure with the Wii U, they probably had it just for a little bit, but they got rid of shit super fast. Now another one that I'll do real quick, I don't even have to have an original Xbox game just to show this one, is how the 360 and like the Xbox One went. Because if you go with the 360, we still got manuals, but they were very, very thin for the most part. Because like this Tomb Raider Underworld one is very thin. But as you got to the Xbox One, as I said already in the video, you basically got shit like this, these day one codes and shit and other passes where you basically didn't really get shit in here. And yeah, that was the one thing I remember. That's the one thing I used to hate about when I got my Xbox One and PS4. I used to be like, I was like, yo, where are the manuals at? But like I was flooded with so many of these goddamn codes. I will say early on, that was how I was getting Xbox Live for free. I will say it did come in clutch, but at the same time I was like, no. I was like, why did y'all include these many goddamn things? Now the next one I want to do is PlayStation, because we know how PlayStation was, especially if you go with PlayStation 1. We already know how these were. Now when it comes to PlayStation right here, I'll show you with Final Fantasy 9. You essentially got the manual right here, and oops, I'm dropping shit. Yeah, like I said, essentially you got the manual right here. And one of the other things that sometimes you would get in games is like you would get like an online strategy guide that they would tell you, because like it would tell you like how you can get to an online strategy guide, because that's what came in Final Fantasy 9. So sometimes you would get stuff like that, which was really cool. But then as we got to the PlayStation 2 era, you know, we always had manuals, because like you'd have stuff like Dead Aim for Resident Evil, and it'll tell you like certain things about the characters, just like the same way they would do in PlayStation 1 games, especially for like Resident Evil games, Final Fantasy game, any game that had like a lot of characters. Usually would have like in the manual, it would literally tell you about like the characters and stuff like that too, because like Resident Evil, they're always about the same, so these ones were the same. But sometimes you would get really cool ones, I'll say, for the PS2, because like when you have Final Fantasy X2, you have one like this that has Yuna on the cover, which was really cool. I really liked this one a lot. Also, you would have like other cool ones that I'll say for like Manhunt. Manhunt has a really cool strategy guide, which like look at this one. This one is really, really cool. And then like as you go inside and you look at it, it has like the white right here, and it looks really, really cool. So like you have cool strategy guides like that. I will say the PS2 era had like a lot of really cool strategy guides, especially for certain games. And also when it comes to like the manuals, like one of the ones I used to love a lot was like the GTA series, either Vice City, GTA 3, or San Andreas. One of the things about the manuals is you'll get the manual, and like inside it'll tell you like all the songs that are on each radio station, so like you can know what radio station you want to do. And also, you know, all the GTA games games came with like a big poster too, so you had that too. So that's one of the things I loved about the PS2, is that we would get so many cool manuals too, because I mean the PS2 in general, you know, one of the greatest systems of all time. There was like so many creative things that we used to get with the PS2. Now when it comes to the PlayStation 3, you know, we still had the manuals, but like they were smaller for the most part. But I don't have no PS3 game on me right now. The only ones I have are like collector editions, and they don't really have like the manuals or anything like that. But we can move on to the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and we can talk about them real quick. Now when it comes to PlayStation 4, we really didn't get nothing, because like look at Nier, because I'll show you Nier right now doesn't have nothing but like codes and then like the random, like, you know, what is this, like warranty or something that Square Enix always puts in these. So for the most part, you didn't, either you got these little flimsy things or something like Persona 5 that I have right here, that's a greatest hit that has nothing at all. So you get stuff like that. Or if you got a steelbook, you would get like some extra stuff in here, like this Tomb Raider one. You would get like codes and then like extra cards. For the most part, you really want to get nothing when it comes to manuals in any of the PS4 games. But there is one series I will say that its whole run on the PS4, we actually did get manuals, and the manuals were thick. And I mean, no pun intended, because if you know this series, there's a lot of thick in here, I will say that. But that is the Senran Kaguya series. We actually got manuals in the Senran Kaguya series. Like every single game here actually had a manual, which is surprising, because like if you go with the first one, which is Versus Festa, that was on here, you got a manual right here. And if we go with the next one, which is Peachy Beach Splash, there's literally a manual right here. So like we got them in every single one. Even the last game that was on the PS5, which was Burst Renewal, you got a manual right here. So like this is one of the few series on the PS4 that actually its whole run through, we actually did get a manual, which is very, very surprising that they gave us a manual. Like as we move on to the PS5, like just know like this is where you really never ever gonna see a manual again. The Senran Kaguya series was a section when it came to the PS4, because the PS4, you know, they got rid of that shit so goddamn fast. Just like how that is with Persona 3 Reloaded, you just got like a little bonus if you pre-order, so you don't get nothing. And then you have something like Resident Evil 4 Remake, you ain't got nothing inside there at all besides the game. And then sometimes you can get extra stuff, like if you get Rebirth. Rebirth does have a few little extra random shit, but like nothing really. It's just like promotion to other random things. And of course you get the warranty random thing that Square Enix puts in all their goddamn games. So for the most part, when it comes to gaming now, you don't see manuals at all in games at all. Yes, you do have your series with your few exceptions, but for the most part, we don't see them at all anymore, and it's a goddamn shame. So video game manuals is something that I just miss that we used to get, and it sucks that we don't get them now in games, because these cases just be so goddamn barren. Because like back in the day, we would get those along with other random things, but it just sucks now that we don't get anything at all, and that really sucks, especially with the Switch, because you'll buy a new game on the Switch and like the Switch casing is just like, why do you include that little thing right there if you're not gonna have shit there at all? At least with the PlayStation and the Xbox, you know, you get a little flimsy thing, but with the Switch you don't get shit majority of the time, unless the gaming studio just happens to put something in there, like something like I showed you with Signalis, how we got the little picture. But for the most part, you don't get shit there. So it's like, why did Nintendo even include that little section right there if you're not gonna put anything there? But it just really sucks that we don't get video game manuals anymore, because they actually added a lot of creativity to it. You saw that like certain games like Manhunt have really cool manuals, so like that's one of the things that's just missing, because you get like some type of creativity when it came to the manuals, because the manuals used to look cool in certain games. Some of them would just be the same cover as, you know, the cover of the case, but some of them would be different. As I showed you with Manhunt and Final Fantasy X2, they would have like little unique ones, and even Final Fantasy 7 had a very unique manual. If you looked at it, it was very different than just like the cover. So it used to have like some unique things, but sadly we don't get them anymore. I can't lie, there's so many times in this video where I accidentally said strategy guide instead of manual. If I don't cut that out, just know that y'all are more than likely you will see a counter that goes throughout the video as all the different times that I say strategy guide instead of manual though.